I introduced you to the characteristics of transport modes. Now let's look at the transport modes in some more details. Let's start with the road freight transport. Please note, for further details, please read the textbook by Gleisner in Femmelink, and for details on the road freight transport, please check table 5.1. This is relevant for examination, of course, otherwise I would not state it here. So what are characteristics of the road freight transport? Transportation via road is very flexible, one of the most flexible modes of transport, in particular when we are considering door-to-door transportation. That meaning picking something from the customer location and bringing it directly to the delivery location. Within transport chains, road transport plays also a very important role because the pre-carriage phase and the on-carriage phase is very often implemented via road freight. The utilization of the vehicles on road freight transport systems are usually high. We can easily choose the size of the truck that is required, that is matching for our transport needs. We can use a small truck, a van, or a big 40-ton truck. Let's move on to rail freight. Rail freight is much more suitable for mass transportation compared to trucks. So if we want to transport heavy goods and high volumes of goods, rail freight is a very good option. It is also competitive when we want to transport goods via the long distance. In shorter distance transportation, rail freight is usually much less competitive because we need to stick to a fixed schedule, and most railway freight transport systems are not so flexible in their schedules. Freight trains, or transporting something via freight trains, is usually very safe. So even if we have hazardous cargo, dangerous cargo, it is very safe to transport this via the train. The speed of trains, this is so-so. So if our train goes directly from the sender to the receiver, and if we don't need to change the cargo between different trains, if we don't need to rearrange the train, then the speed can be pretty good of a train. But when we need to change train tracks, or if we need to do some shunting, that means rearranging the train, then this slows down the speed quite considerably. So when we look at door-to-door transport, road freight can often be faster. Another mode of transport that is equally suitable for mass transportation is of course sea freight. And sea freight, we have even longer distances, ultra long distances between continents. Usually via the train you're bound to your continent, to your country, maybe even because of different technical systems in how the trains are operated. But if you want to ship something from Europe to the United States, there is no train connection, though you need to go for the sea freight. On the other hand, there is a train connection from the inland port in Duisburg, West Germany, that goes directly via Russia to China. So even in this specific example, there's ultra long distance transport via train, but for many other long distance transportations, sea freight is the only option. It is again very safe, like trains, but usually transportation via ship is much slower. We do not only have transportation of cargo via sea freight, but also on inland waterway transportation. This is an example of the Kiel Canal in Germany, which is in the north of Germany and connects the North Sea with the East Sea. This mode of transportation offers usually little flexibility, because of course we need to follow the rivers, and building artificial rivers like in this example is usually not an option. However, it is very good for mass transportation. Again, it is very safe but slow. When is it useful? Often it can be useful if our customers are directly connected to the inland waterways. So some chemical plants that, for example, need water for their operations, they are connected to the waterway anyway, and they require a lot of a high volume of different chemicals, and then this inland waterway transportation can be a very good option. Be careful, transportation on the inland waterway often depends very much on the weather. So when the weather is bad, we have to stop our transportation. Another mode of operation that depends on the weather is air freight. When is the weather a problem? The weather can be a problem while starting and landing. Once the plane is in the air, weather is usually not a big issue, but it can delay or prevent starting and landing. Transportation via air freight is extremely fast, in particular when we want to cover long distance. On the short distance, air freight is usually not a good option because it is too expensive. The capacity of air freight, in addition, is very limited compared to trains or ships, so the capacity is extremely small. You saw this when I showed you the chart about the ton-kilometer, about the percentages of transportation modes in Europe, and that air freight had an extremely low percentage of the ton-kilometers in Europe. However, air freight can be or is used for very valuable goods. So expensive electronics, medicine is transported via air freight. So air freight is a very important mode of transportation. And finally, we have the pipeline transportation. Pipeline transportation is very safe and for mass transport, suited for mass transportation. It is quite cheap. However, it is less flexible, so we are bound to a few types of goods that we can transport. Liquids, gas, in particular oil. The network forming capability of a pipeline, it depends how you look at it. Yeah? If there is enough land, like in this picture obviously, then you can have the pipeline, you can form any network that you like, and you can directly go from the customer to from the production side to the customer side, which is, for example, done now in the booming shale gas in the United States. However, not for all countries this is a viable option, because when there are many people living, high population through cities, then it might not be so easy to build these pipelines. However, for transporting oil or gas, pipelines can be very safe and very cheap. I would like you to look at these different modes of transports in the book of Gleisner and Femerling. You always see below the picture the respective table which discusses the characteristics of the mode of transport, and here again is the book that is also available on Moodle, and please go into more details while you're doing the self-study.